Hi, and welcome back to Kingsclear. So some of you may have noticed on the August update that one of the new arrivals here at Kingsclear is the GWR Q13 inspection saloon, produced by Dapol for Rails of Sheffield as an exclusive, and it's a part of their Black Label series of vehicles. So what I'm going to do, one of those box opening type videos, but I'm going to do that, but I'm also going to go through a lot more detail on the actual carriage itself, in regards that I'm going to install the Model inspection saloon crew, basically the engineers for example, and then do a bit of a light dusting of weathering over it. So hopefully when you see it at the end, it will be a lot dirtier than it is now, but realistically dirty, not just overly dirty. So I hope you enjoy. Okay, so we'll start with the packaging. Pretty much the high level standard packaging that you'd expect on this type of vehicle. Limited to no movement, with obviously the cushioning all around. You get obviously all your bags of bits inside there, which I'll go through later. Also a nice little book here, gives you a little bit of details about the vehicle, obviously DCC operations, how you position the actual chip, etc. So it's a really quite a nice little pamphlet showing you, if you want to do what I've done, which is remove the tension lock at one end, how to do that. And I think if you hadn't had all this information, you may have fallen foul, not too sure, depending on obviously your skills, but generally not too bad at all. As mentioned, due to that really good packaging, there was no damage whatsoever to the actual vehicle. However, I did find that, I think it was two, it could have been three actually, of the axles were not correctly seated within the bogie recesses. Now, I don't think that was due to transit or movement within transit. I think that's purely when it left the factory and they weren't absolutely put in correctly. Bearing in mind the actual axles themselves do pick up the electrical current as well, so it was important, and obviously for running quality and the fact they just didn't, it didn't run very well at all. So it took no time at all, but that was the only real issue that I found. In regards to this carriage, I've actually carried out a couple of the steps. The first step was the installation of the DCC chip, and I'll go into that in a bit. And the other thing I've done was remove the tension lock coupling from this end of the vehicle, added the pipes, coupling hook, etc. And also, if you can notice there, the end plate on the bogie. Now, although it's not overly clear at the moment, I think obviously once I've done that weathering, that will really pop out and it will look really, really good. When I actually take the body off, I'll show you where the DCC chip will affix into the body. But what I'm going to now do is just go through the functionality of the chip itself. So the chip is a Next 18 DCC decoder. I used the Dapol one for this one, to be perfectly honest with you, bearing in mind it's a Dapol carriage. I thought that they most probably would have preferred you to use a Dapol one, but anyone will fit anyway. So as I say, so in regards of lights, what we'll start is with the tail light first. So as you can see, the tail light, which has just been exhibited there in the forward direction, and then you can just reverse that to be obviously a red tail light. So really straightforward and simple. You've then got three areas of which the carriage can be lit. So you've got the rear compartment, shall we say, in this scenario. Obviously will be the front compartment now. Obviously now I've reversed the direction of the vehicle. You've then got the center section, which in effect contains the galley and a small guards compartment, and then obviously in this configuration the rear compartment, and they are completely independent of each other, and to be honest with you, look and feel right in regards of their, shall we say, temperature scale. They're not too bright, they're not too dim, maybe a little bit dimmer, maybe a little bit, bearing in mind the years, but to be honest with you, I'm not overly worried about it. It does look right. So in regards of the actual DC operations, as you've just seen, this is the DCC operation under a chip. The chip was about £20, I think. I can't remember now. It's not a great deal of money. And depending on your system, now on my system, the Z21, you've got to have a relay via an engine. So I had to place this onto the manual track, and had a loco on there at the same time, just to get the actual address into the vehicle. But that's your system maybe different, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But yeah, so that's the control under DCC. If you've got DCC but you don't put it on, obviously, the chip in there, and the same with DCC, I think when you put it on, all the lights will come on, but you've got the little let me just switch the light on to make it nice and clear. Underneath, you can say you got those switches there, so you can alter those switches. So in effect, you can have all the lights on, or you can just have for example, the galley light on, for example. That's entirely up to you. The only issue is if you want to change off of that, you need to take the vehicle off the track to obviously flick those switches. So when you come to remove the body, there's basically two simple steps. These brass handrails need to be removed from the actual vehicle itself on both sides. Really important, don't forget that. And then just slide in 4 bits of plastic card, which is what I've done there, and then over the clips, and then in effect the body quite easily releases. So as I mentioned earlier, just 4 bits of plastic card, don't need to be too big, something like that. I think if you go for like a millimetre thick, gives you that stiffness that you're after. Those are ideal. I've been using these for years to take off loco bodies, and they're just so simple. Just slide those in over the little clips and they remove off really, really quickly. And the funny thing is, it's the first time I've actually seen it in a manual to say use those, so that's quite cool. So if we have a look at the actual interior detail now, as you can clearly see, there's the DCC chip in its position, and obviously this black strips above are obviously the lighting strips. But if we focus now obviously on the detail inside, as you can see, it is quite nice. The print on the actual sofas and chairs looks really good. I could only assume that that white area there in effect is the assumption obviously individuals would be placed there, maybe a cushion maybe, but as I say, nice desks and tables, etc. The galley area, again, you're not necessarily going to see this because the actual glass, or the window I should say, is frosted up, but when you actually look in there, that has got some really, really nice details. And then focusing in on the guards compartment, so you can see obviously the air pipes and the brake pipes there with the brake wheel. Nice little chair there, little desk there for the actual guard. And then if we move on to the rear compartment, and I'll just leave it like that, I think you can see that quite clearly anyway. Nice couple of foot sofas, the long desk table, obviously you can put out your drawings, etc. It's all there. The actual carpet is just that standard dark blue. You may wish to obviously just enhance that a little bit. I might do. I don't think I'm going to be overly worried about it, purely because when you actually put the carriage body on there, you don't necessarily pick it up. It's a nice rich dark colour. So in effect, that's basically what you get out of the kit, or so I should say the model itself. But what I'm going to do now is, once the Model U crew turn up, what I'll do is obviously I'll paint those up very similar to what I've done with the other Model U figures, which if you have a look through some of the back videos that I've got, demonstrates how I do that. And then I will literally just position those into various chairs, standing in different areas. I may put out some type of drawing on this table, not too sure at the moment, but yeah, it's really, really nice, good quality. If we now look at the actual body, or the shell, as you can see, this window here is the frosted window for the galley. Again, frosted window here. This is for the toilet. And also one interesting thing as well, as you may notice, is some of these windows appear to be open and without any glass in them whatsoever. So I can only assume that obviously that was the vents being open. However, it's only like half a vent there and half a vent there, which I think is quite an interesting development. It's something that doesn't normally happen, and it's something that I've had to do in the past where I have had to cut the glazing. So that's quite a nice development. The only thing I might need to do is, as you can see, if I bring up to about there, you might see about the curtains are very nice, but they're just a bit too plain. So what I might do on that is just pop those off if I can, and they appear like they should pop off quite easily, and then just put a wash in there, and that'll just give that darkness. Looking at the inside of the shell, as you can see, you've got obviously luggage racks, briefcase racks, bag racks above as well. Something again that you're not going to necessarily see when the vehicle is obviously on the layout, but it's just nice to have there. In regards to the exterior, all of the lettering, as you can just make out there, hopefully guard there. Obviously the Western prefix there as well. The yellow picked out really nicely with some other various bits and pieces in there. It's all really nicely well done, and again, not too much of a bleed there on the yellow. The yellow looks quite good, sorry, that's better. That yellow looks quite good, and the actual looks nice and sharp. And also it is nice to see, obviously, even you got the line on the brown there with that like gold line there, even on that small detail there. So really nice, really well picked up, really clean, and yeah, really pleased with it. So as I say, the only thing I have noticed is that when this LED is obviously in its white or red configuration, there is an awful lot of light protruding backwards. I can only assume it's through say that area there. So what I might do is if I can have a look at it, if there's enough room, just put a blanking plate over that, and that might prevent that movement of light into the actual cabin area. So in summing up of basically straight out of the box, obviously there's some details that I've done as I mentioned earlier, but yeah, really good. Granted, it is expensive. I can't remember exactly, I think it was about 130. Just have a look at Rails of Sheffield, it'll tell you on there. They do it in various different liveries. Obviously this is the era that I'm looking at, so around about the 1960s. You can have the one previous to this. You can have blue and grey. I think they've got Intercity, they've got ScotRail. So lots and lots of different liveries for this particular model. I believe all the interiors are pretty much the same. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, in summing up, really pleased with it. And as I say, once I get the figures inside, it has that bit of a weathering, just toning down some of the areas and picking up some of the other underframe details. It will look really good. And as I say, when you, where is the camera? There's the camera. When you look at that end detail, very rarely will you see that level of detail on a carriage. Yeah, really pleased with it. So yeah, so what we have to do now, just wait for the Model U figures to arrive, paint those up, we'll get those in, then we'll take it in to do a bit of spraying, and we'll have the finished article. So anytime I do any weathering to any of the carriages or locos or wagons, I always look at the wheels and give them a bit of a coat of a dirty colour. In this case I've gone for Rail Match Sleeper Grime, I think it is. Yeah, Sleeper Grime. And that's quite easy. All we do is just put it onto its side, put the brush onto the wheel and the tyre rim, and just turn the wheel and just let it flow round. Really quite simple. And now I'll look at obviously doing all the rest of the weathering. But while I was doing that, I actually looked at this issue with the light bleed, and as you can see, the light is actually within the actual chassis, and you're never going to get a complete seal around that as it stands at the moment. So what I might look at is some type of material, maybe a spongy type material, something like that I can just put in that area that will dampen down that light bleed. Just watch this space, see where we go with that. With the arrival now of the Model U figures, we can get on looking about getting these into the carriage. Now these figures are actually designed to go into the Bachmann inspection saloon, not the Dapol one that we've got. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to release these figures from their frets, off from up into the positions, especially the seated ones, and obviously do any modifications that we need to be done prior to painting. But also before we do the painting, as you can see, these guys, if I just put them there so they're a bit clearer, you can see there's absolutely phenomenal quality there on the actual the faces and what they're doing and the rest of it, holding bits of paper and stuff like that. So really looking forward to actually offering these up, painting them up, and positioning them within the carriage. Before I put the Model U figures into the carriage, I thought I'd just give you a bit of a close-up of what they're like, because you won't actually see them when they go in there. So I think they've actually come out quite well. I'm not too sure whether this is they've just come out from the video, but I'm just moving the camera in front of the light there. So yeah, I think they've come out really well. Also, other bits and pieces I'm going to do to put on the scene. As you can see, there's a sketch of a track diagram, which I'm going to put on the long table, and I'm going to put some other papers and stuff like that. So yeah, so they've actually come up quite well, and let's see what they're like when they're actually within the carriage. With the body now back on and the crew obviously inside, just wanted to check to see how we got on with that light bleed. So switching the light on now, and then if we look inside, yep, pretty good. So what I ended up doing there was just put a little bit of sponge around the back of it, but also painted in a matte black the underside of the, in effect, the glazing unit. I think most of that bleed was coming up from that glazing unit. So that resolved that, looks really good. If I just turn on that interior light now, so as you can see, there's the crew in there. You can just about pick up that drawing in there, so it's a bit wobbly. Obviously the guy there having a cup of tea. So yep, generally really quite happy with that now. If I turn the light on just to give it a bit more light. Also, you'll see that while I had the body off, I decided just to give a very light dusting weathering on the roof with a couple of obviously water streaks coming down from various items up there. Those streaks, in effect, I've only just literally put on, so they will lighten up shortly anyway. So yeah, really pleased. And now just for the weathering of the underframe, and we're done. With a very light weathering of the underframe details and the bogies, because I didn't really want to overdo it. It really has finished this vehicle off. I did a little bit of an overspray on the bottom of the body itself, but not a great deal. As I say, I'm going to keep this quite a clean type of vehicle. But yeah, there we go, all done. As I say, as a vehicle, I'm really impressed with it. The lighting functionality, especially the tail light. Now I've obviously got rid of that light bleed is excellent. The addition of the crew really does bring it to life. So yeah, overall really pleased. So if you've got any comments or questions, please drop them in and I'll get back to you. And apart from that, thank you very much for watching. Obviously, if you haven't subscribed, please do. Obviously, that'll keep you up to date with all the developments here at Kingsclere Model Railway, and that obviously includes the monthly updates that I do, and these special new arrival weathering type videos that I do. Apart from that, thank you very much, and I'll speak to you soon.